Something else interesting happened during the game. This is the first time that I can remember that we had two quarterbacks limp off the field. Not just like a little limp. I mean, Joe Burrow was struggling. Matt Stafford did not look great. Both of those guys are tough as nails. There was no way Matt Stafford was coming out of that game. And the same thing with Joe Burrow. They were going to limp out there and get it done and worry about anything else tomorrow. And so that became kind of the storyline as we were monitoring those guys. You know, and Stafford obviously wasn't under fire nearly as much as Burrow was. But both of those guys getting injured, something that I don't think we've ever seen, at least not recently, in a game that was that tight and that meaningful, with both quarterbacks suffer what you thought something that could have been a game-changing injury, where maybe they weren't able to return. Ultimately, they did. I don't think it impacted either one of their performances. They went out there, locked in, and played. Now, neither one of them pulled it down and really went out and tried to press it running the football from that point on. But it didn't look like it limited their mobility in the pocket at all. They were still able to go out there and play the clean game that everybody thought that they could. Cincinnati, as I mentioned, did a good job protecting Joe Burrow for the most part in the first half. Mixed up the run and the pass, got the ball out pretty quick. Burrow was checking it down quickly, was getting through his progressions fast because he knew there was pressure coming. Offensive line held up pretty well. Second half, it was a different story. I mean, it was a rush. Those 7 sacks, Aaron Donald all over the place harassing. He started overloading 3 to a side, as you heard him talking about in the game, to prevent the center turn and to, have flush stuff to make him move up in the pocket. Von Miller could chase him down from the backside if Donald got pushed. I mean, they had a lot of great games going. And then the other thing that the Rams did too is they knew they had to get pressure. They started walking linebackers up, and they were trying to help chip with the back. So we're going to fire backers to make sure that can't happen. And so they started adding guys in the rush, and that paid dividends. The play that Joe Burrow went down, they were bringing pressure on that. Their defensive line had been so good all year, but credit Cincy's offensive line for the most part, and the schemes and what they were doing. A lot of it, like I said, I'm going to give credit to Zach Taylor for that with what he did. But keeping Joe Burrow upright in the first half. In the second half, it was no contest. There was nothing else they had to do. They had no more tricks up their sleeve. Of his 33 attempts, he sacked 7 times, Burrow is. Another 11 pressures. That's 18 of 33. That is over half of his times. And I guess it's fitting. I mean, he was sacked 51 times in the regular season. In the 4 games of the playoffs, including the Super Bowl, sacked another 1970 sacks for the year. I mean, he's up there with some of those all-time numbers. And so that's the area that obviously Cincinnati has to address in the offseason. We've talked about it, immensely. And I put that number at 3.5. Early in the game, they looked like they were trending to stay under 3.5 sacks. 3 sacks is fine, maybe even a 4th. So I mentioned 5 times this year, Cincinnati had given up 5 or more sacks in the regular season. They were 1-4 in those games. Gave up 11 against the Titans, but that was when Ryan Tannehill threw 3 interceptions and allowed them to stay in the game. People brought that up on Twitter. Hey, they had 9 against Tennessee. Well, Stafford had 2 picks. He didn't ultimately give them the 3rd. He didn't give them that 3rd on the final drive like Tannehill did that allowed them to spin around and ultimately go kick the game winner. So the 7 sacks were what did him in. Joe Burrow could not overcome it. Donald was a monster inside. Obviously, the heat didn't bother him. And the last 2 plays kind of sum up what Aaron Donald was all about. Trying to run the ball on a 3rd and short. Donald just stiff arms the guard and grabs P. Ryan in the back and literally holds him like a child so he can't get any more yards. I don't think many people realize the strength that you have to hold an NFL running back around the waist and not let them advance for any yardage. It is ridiculous. I'm sitting there looking at this, like Aaron Donald moves like a linebacker and has the strength of Hercules, for heaven's sake. That play right there, like, well, that's him playing the run. And then ultimately gets pressure at the end, the final play, the 4th and 1. Burrow gets the ball out, and it does actually get close to a receiver. I believe it was P. Ryan on a check down, but Donald getting the pressure there that ultimately ended the game. And to sum it up, the dude wanted the ring. He's probably the best player right now in the NFL, regardless of position. And he played like it tonight. He was a man possessed. And those final two plays summed up basically what he's all about in the 2-minute situation.